And joining me today is Boomer Stan Ozark from up in Scotty country. How's the weather up there, Stan? Did you guys get any moisture over the night?
No, actually, well, a little bit of snow yesterday, but it's
Yeah.
pretty nice. 30 degrees out right now. It's melting. All the snow we got in December starting to melt. We haven't really gotten any big snow since last month. So,
Right, right. That's kind of the way we are. So, well, what do you got for sports?
well, I finally had a chance on last Thursday, to watch Luster play. Luster played Nashua, and Luster handled Nashua pretty easily. 75-35 was the final score. But boy, that Luster team is impressive. Ranked number one in the state, and they are unbeaten. And I would imagine that they will go unbeaten during the regular season. I think I said that last week. They on their schedule tomorrow on Tuesday, they have Scobie, and then they finish out Bainville, Fraser, North Country, and Dodson, and they certainly would be favored in all those games. The Scobie game on Tuesday could be tight. Who knows? Scobie played them actually pretty tough the first time in Scobie, but this game will be in Luster. So we'll see how that turns out. But this is a Luster team. For a Class C team, they're pretty gosh darn big. Hambira, Josiah Hambira, 6'4", Braden Ewing, 6'3", Elijah Lenahan, 6'2". Their guards are 6 foot. And then off the bench, Clay Reddig, he comes in. He starts sometimes. He's 6'1". Byron Ewing is 6'4". And then this is actually fun to watch. They have a freshman. His name's Johns Lee Pierre. He is 6'5" and very raw. But boy, once he starts getting learning the game of basketball, he is going to be a load to handle. And he is just a freshman for the Luster Lions. So when you think about that, they go 10 to 12 deep with this team. Now, when you get deep into the postseason, whether they'll be able to go 10 or 12 deep, but they legitimately probably can go 8 to 9 deep, 8 or 9 deep for sure. They defend every inch of the court. And I remember watching the University of Arkansas play when Nolan Richardson coached them. And every second of that, what they call it, like 40 minutes of hell. This is like 32 minutes of hell with the Luster defense. They just defend every bit of the court, and of course, they're so long. You know that, Bob. You get a pressing defense, and you have kids with long arms out there who are athletic. It is really tough to bring the ball up and try to get into your offense. My stepson Eli helped me out during the game. I wasn't paying attention during warmups. This was in Nashua. We were broadcasting from the stage, and so we were um, right next to the Luster basket as they were warming up. And he told me they had 6 straight dunks in the warmups before the officials got out. Of course, that's how athletic this Luster team is.
Wow.
And well, yeah, when you see them come out, you're like, wow. And then when you watch them play, I don't think they probably played their best game against Nashua, even though they still won by 40. It was a really they're a fun team to watch, and I think as the postseason progresses, as they get out of district into divisional and get challenged a little more, they will be a team really to look out for. They've never advanced to the state tournament, but I think this is definitely their year. Just a couple other notes about Luster. Of course, they're unbeaten, but they've played some pretty tough teams. They beat Fairview. Fairview's only had one loss this year, and that was to Luster. They beat Fairview back in December, winning 48-42. They also have wins over Plentywood, a solid team. Plentywood's only had 3 losses, and then they beat Culbertson 74-45. And just this past weekend, and Culbertson right in the mix there in the 2C. So Fairview, Plentywood, Freud, Medicine Lake, Luster probably are those teams to watch out of the Eastern C Division for the boys. But I certainly would say Luster and Fairview will be battling it out for the divisional championship, at least at this point of the season.
Are we? Are they on their second round up there pretty much,
Yeah, in
Stan?
fact, they just actually have 5 games left on their schedule, including Tuesday's game with Scobie. So they're
Okay,
just about 3 weeks left in their season before
right.
district tournament starts. So they have 4 conference games left. Then that non-conference game with Bainville coming up, I believe, Friday in Bainville, and they've beat Bainville this year. Their scores, though, um, I mean, they've been beating teams now by 30, 40 points, and especially in the
Right.
District 3C, which they'll go in and they will certainly be the favorites to win that and advance on to the divisional tournament in Wolf Point next month.
All right. How about on the girl side?
So on the girls' side, boy, we talk a lot about North Country, the Lady Mavericks. This is really cool, I think, from being from Northeast Montana and in our coverage area here in Glasgow. The 2 number 1 ranked teams in the state for Class C boys and girls both come out of the 3C conference, which is really awesome. North Country continued their winning ways. They're 13-0 this past weekend. North Country uh, had a pretty, they beat Dodson 63-26. And then on Saturday, a game which we broadcast, North Country played Circle. Circle in the mix there in the 2C, like the number 2, number 3 team out of the 2C. And North Country beat them 58-31. So they've beaten Circle twice. Um, and they have not played Plentywood yet out of the Eastern C. And those 2 teams have battled each other for the Eastern C division for years now, but they have not yet played Plentywood. Plentywood is unbeaten on the year too, so you have 2 teams here in the Eastern C unbeaten. Otherwise, for North Country, they did beat Roy Winifred earlier this year, 43-37. That's Roy Winifred's only loss. So they've had some
Right.
good competition, but that competition doesn't exist in the 3C. They're beating teams by 40 points. We talk about North Country a lot. Obviously, Tegan Erickson and Paige Wasson. Wasson 5'10", I think Erickson 6'2", and 2 of the best players in the state of Montana. They're juniors. I have no doubt Tegan Erickson is talking to a lot of Division I schools about playing, and Paige Wasson right behind her. But we talked last week about one of those players who contributes, but maybe doesn't get the
Yep.
notoriety, and it's tough, obviously, on a North Country team when everyone talks Tegan Erickson and Paige Wasson. There's a girl, she goes to school in Whitewater. Her name's Cora Labrie. She was a really good volleyball player for that volleyball team that picked up a trophy at the state volleyball tournament. Cora Labrie is a guard, does a lot of the ball handling, and can also get into double-digit scoring if need be. She's one of those unsung heroes on that North Country team that if you want to watch someone other than Tegan or Paige, watch Cora Labrie and how she moves the ball around. A lot of things go through her, and you can tell she's a really savvy ball player. So she's a key part of that North Country team. And North Country, they again, their schedule, they won't have any trouble as they move through the rest of their season as well. They'll go into that district tournament unbeaten and certainly be favored to win the District 3C tournament easily. Get into that divisional tournament. It looks like Plentywood will be the team right now. That'll be the biggest obstacle for North Country to get back to that state tournament. But I certainly would think North Country would be favored to make a return trip to the state tournament. And I think their goal is a state championship. So it'll be fun to watch them as they finish up their regular season. They have 5 games left, and then they'll get into that District 3C tournament, which will be right here in Glasgow.
Right. And I haven't really looked at the state brackets and see who plays who, and that it's always a big I always called it the luck of the draw,
Right?
who you draw in that semifinal, and especially in Class C, you gotta have luck to win a state championship, and that's all part of it, boy. If you draw the wrong division in that semifinal game, I think your championship games are a lot of times on that Friday night.
Isn't that interesting? Because even at a divisional tournament, my one of my favorite nights is Friday night. Just it's where you're playing really at that divisional tournament, especially in Class C, because only 2 teams go out of the division. Those are 2 huge games,
Yeah.
and that's the same at the state tournament. And Amber Erickson has already looked at that bracket. She knows who they would match up with in the first round, and if they win onto that semifinals. But what's the old saying? I mean, you have to beat them all anyway. So, but
Yeah,
you want to get to that state title game so bad, so you hope you have a decent matchup on Friday night if you win on Thursday, so you can at least get into that championship game. And you always hope that the two best teams play on Saturday night in the championship, but sometimes that's not the case. Someone
yeah.
gets knocked off and they have to come back and they finish third at state.
Well, even in especially in Class C, where they only take two out of each
Yep.
division. There's always seems like somebody gets upset at divisional, and you got a maybe the number one or number two team end up playing that first game of the state tournament.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So the state tournament is, you just said, it's the luck of the draw. You go into a state tournament, you're thinking you're in pretty good shape, and all of a sudden, a North Country gets beat at the divisional tournament. They finish second, and you're like, that's a tough first round matchup to have North Country. But
Yeah,
that happened last year because North Country got beat by Plentywood in the championship game. So North Country went into the state tournament as a number 2 seed, and they beat the number 1 team. I think it was from the North in that first round.
yeah, yeah. It happened to us. I think. I want to say maybe '98. Scobie got beat in the divisional, and we were 1-2 all year, and we ended up playing in the first game of the state tournament that year. So I won't say who won, so that doesn't. You probably figured that out, but it was a good ball game. I think it ended up 2 points. They beat us by 1 or 2 points, so it was a good game. So, how about uh, how about Class B? What do you got there?
Well, Wolf Point picked up a huge win over Malta on Saturday afternoon in Malta. That puts Wolf Point now unbeaten in conference play in the District 2B for the boys. So Wolf Point is certainly in the driver's seat. Poplar had the big win over Harlem. I think Delray Lilly for Poplar had 47 points in a win for Poplar. This is a Poplar team that could cause a lot of problems. They put 107 points up on Harlem, I think, and right now they'll probably finish second in the District 2B, but they're a team to watch for. So right now, Wolf Point and Poplar, Malta there as well. Those are your top 3 teams coming out of the District 2B at this point. Wolf Point unbeaten. The Wolf Point boys, they've taken on all challengers so far this year and have handled them. So they very well, as I was looking at their schedule, they'll play Glasgow coming up here. They very well could go unbeaten into that district tournament as well. So I was talking to head coach Paul Yoakum of the Scotty boys this weekend, and I asked him about the District 2B boys, and I said, is this how you kind of thought it would play out? And he said, yeah. He said, Wolf Point returns a lot of players from a good team last year, and he expected them to be at the top or near the top. But Malta returns 3 freshman guards from last year's team. And of course, Dave Costin is the coach of Malta, and they are loaded.
Right.
And then, of course, Poplar with the Delray Lilly and that crew, they can score a lot of points. So that District 2B has some good teams, and I'm not sure how tough the Northern B is. And maybe there could be a couple teams from the 2B who represent the Northern B division at state. As far as the girls go, it's all about the Malta Amettes. They just have the 1 loss on the year, and that was to a very good Havre Blue Pony team. So other than that, Malta's cruised through their schedule, and I imagine they'll be leading the pack out of the District 2B, headed to that Northern B girls, where they certainly, I think, will be the favorite to advance onto the state tournament.
All right. How about a role player in the Class B? You got somebody there?
Well, I'm not sure he's not. I wrote the name down, and it's kind of a. I guess I like to watch some of these young players play because their maturity level is they really have to be playing at a high level. And the kid is Grady Nielsen from Nashua, and he played against Luster. He's a 6'2" freshman. Keep that name in mind. He is a big time scorer for Nashua. He can shoot from the outside. He's a coach's kid. He can shoot from the outside, play inside as well. And he is a player to watch for Nashua for the next several years. That Nashua team, they only go about 6 deep, and they really struggled against Luster, that style of play, that fast play. But Nashua is a team just to kind of watch for because Nielsen can put up 20, 25 points. They have some good shooting guards. Just a kind of they'll be a fun team to watch coming out of the going into the District 3C tournament. But Grady Nielsen, a 6'2 freshman, keep that name in mind. His dad is the head coach for the Nashua boys in his first year. Travis coached the Nashua or the Glasgow girls for several years, but now he's coaching the Nashua boys. So Grady Nielsen, that's the name
All
for
right.
you, Bob.
Okay. I wrote her down, Boomer.
Okay.
I wrote her
Now,
down.
it's always nice talking about kids who are 15 and putting a lot of faith in them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it kind of gives us something to stick around and look forward to next year.
Certainly, and that's what I enjoy so much is seeing some of these younger players really step up. And even, I've talked about Glasgow has a couple of 8th grade players. You're just seeing more and more programs now take advantage of that because they have these 8th graders who can step up and maybe fill in some minutes. And
Yeah.
I'll be really interested to see once you get to a divisional or a state tournament how many 8th graders are playing. That's a pretty big stage to play in when you're 13, 14 years old.
Yeah. And thing of it is we can see it in all classes now. It used to just be
Yep.
class C, and I've even heard some class A freshmen playing as well. So it's or playing freshmen, 8th graders, I should say, playing quite a bit as well. So it's going to be like you say, it'll be interesting just to see what the numbers are there. I really don't expect any in class double A. In fact, I think the Billings schools voted not to play 8th
Okay.
graders, and I understand that to a certain point when you got that many kids, you know,
Well,
but
that brings up just a whole nother kind of headache for a coach, right?
yeah,
When you have an 8th grader knocking on the door, and who's that 8th grader going to take playing time away from? That
yeah,
senior who's worked hard for you for the last 3, 4 years, and
yeah,
it's all kinds of headaches for coaches, as you know, if you have to do that if you're moving kids up. But look how the game has evolved, Bob. Even since you were coaching in Glasgow, for example, 10 years ago, you never would have thought of a freshman stepping up and playing. A freshman. Now
yeah,
Glasgow has 8th graders stepping up and playing. The game
yeah,
has evolved a lot to where younger kids are having more of an impact.
yeah, and kids, kids just play so much more in the summer.
Yep.
The younger kids more so than the older kids. Maybe that's a drive, a goal of theirs, or whatever. But you see a lot more youth programs doing better. And I won't mention any names. Might have them on here sometime, but there's a lot of coaches going around with these doing these camps at different schools and elementary schools year round. It's not just during the summer, but even during basketball, high school basketball, they call them these basketball academies, and they go around and have these 2-day camps or whatever at these elementary schools, and it's just makes kids better and stronger and faster and more fun to
Yeah.
watch.
I think of Malta last year with Costin bringing up 3 freshmen to play. I mean, he played them in that state tournament. 2 of them started, and they won a couple games at that state tournament with 3 freshmen playing a pile of games at playing guard and shooting big threes. I mean, that would have been unheard of 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah,
But they did the job, and they're playing
yeah.
again now, and they're just 1 year better. So
The only thing that I have to say against the 8th grade rule is that in the state records, they need to have an asterisk that
yeah,
they played 5 years.
yeah, that's true. I never thought of that.
That's,
Yeah,
you hear a lot of that now, but, it's just kinda taken away from some really good players even way back when. I mean, I even, to be honest with you, feel there should be an asterisk at when the three-point line went in.
sure.
Because, I mean, especially scoring wise, I guess probably the main thing there. But I've said this. I don't know if I said it when I had you on before, but when I played, if we'd had the 3-point line, Melbourne Eagle Feathers at Busby would have averaged probably 50, 60 points a game.
Yeah.
He got 20 a game, and so you had another 10 or 15 on there. Why, yeah, I'm glad they didn't have it. It's bad enough the way it was.
I think everyone has stories like that, having watched basketball pre 3-point, because specifically a lot of those Native American schools, oh my goodness, they had shooters. And yeah, they would have cleaned up with a 3-point shot.
Yeah. Yeah, and it did change the game. I was actually coaching during when the 3-point line changed, and back when it was 2 points, you had a 10 or 12 point lead. You felt pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
Put your subs in, and did that, and lost the game.
Yeah, that's
That's simple.
exactly it. Yeah, now with a couple minutes left, if you're down by 12 and you're facing off a good team, nothing is safe, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Well, Boomer, you got anything else for us today?
Nope, that's it for today.
All right. Well, once again, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
And I'd like to thank our guests that come on the show and talk about Montana high school sports. Without them, this show would not be possible. And once again, if you like this podcast, please click on the subscribe button below to get alerts when we have up a new podcast.